For us Brits, the weather is not just something we live with and endure. It's a key topic of conversation, a discussion point. But those discussions, like the weather, are about to get way more intense. This current summer heatwave is laying bare a looming potential crisis that our industry is completely unprepared to face. For decades, the British construction and demolition sectors have been geared entirely around battling the elements that we know and with which we're familiar: the relentless rain, the biting wind, and the freezing cold. We've spent generations figuring out how to keep the damp out and the warmth in. But flipping that script to handle sustained, blistering heat will require an absolute overhaul of how we build, how we mix materials, and how we treat the people on the ground. Now, there's a growing assumption that we're heading towards an age where every semi-detached house in the country will be retrofitted with air conditioning. It's a fantasy. Fitting traditional poorly ventilated UK housing stock with energy-hungry cooling units is structurally invasive, expensive, and an environmental disaster. Instead, the pressure is mounting on passive cooling. The building regulations are already forcing architects to design new homes with structural solar shading and specialised glazing to prevent overheating before it starts. For the millions of existing homes, the future is not a sudden boom in standard air conditioning, but rather a shift towards heat pumps that can run in reverse to manage the internal climate efficiently. On the job itself, this extreme heat is wreaking absolute havoc with material chemistry. It's a logistical nightmare for project managers who are used to standard curing times. When you pour concrete in this kind of weather, the water in the mix evaporates far too quickly. That accelerates the hydration process, causing the concrete to set long before it's been properly placed or finished. That rapid drying leads to severe shrinkage, cracking, and a catastrophic drop in the ultimate structural strength of the build. Suppliers are being forced to resort to chemical retarders or even adding chilled water and ice to the mix, while crews are increasingly pushed into overnight pours. And asphalt is just as problematic. It needs to be laid hot, but when the ambient temperature is through the roof, the compacted road surface takes an age to cool down to a stable, traffic-bearing temperature. If you open a road too early in a heatwave, heavy vehicles will rut and deform the soft surface instantly. For the road crews, laying tarmac in 30-degree weather means standing on a surface radiating over 150 degrees, which is practically unendurable. And that brings us to the most important element in all of this: the workforce. The old macho attitude of expecting lads to slog through the midday sun in traditional gear is a fast track to a major health and safety prosecution, or possibly something far worse. A standard plastic hard hat acts like a miniature greenhouse, trapping heat right against the skull, while a cheap nylon high-vis vest creates an impermeable barrier that stops sweat from evaporating. Expecting a worker to remain sharp and safe while wearing that kit in the soaring temperatures is madness. The industry has to adapt immediately by introducing ventilated helmets and lightweight, moisture-wicking fabrics that still meet visibility and safety standards. We also need to talk about the working day. An afternoon siesta might sound completely un-British, but split shift patterns are going to become the norm. Starting at 5 in the morning, knocking off by 1 in the afternoon to avoid the peak UV and temperature hours is a practical necessity that major infrastructure projects are already adopting. And to back this up, we need explicit statutory exposure limits for heat, managed with the same rigour as hand-arm vibration syndrome or noise. Right now, the guidelines are frustratingly vague, stating only the indoor workplaces should be reasonable, while outdoor workers have no legal maximum temperature protection at all. We need a standardised thermal comfort trigger system where specific temperatures legally mandate controls, such as a forced 15-minute rest break every hour in the shade and active buddy system monitoring for heat exhaustion. This infrastructure change must also extend to plant procurement. For anyone specifying heavy machinery, treating climate control as an optional luxury is becoming a dangerously outdated mindset. If an excavator has a cab that acts like an unventilated glasshouse, the operator's cognitive function drops drastically within an hour. That's exactly when fatal mistakes happen. Air conditioning and robust cab filtration must be insisted upon as a standard, non-negotiable safety equipment, just like rollover protection. If an operator is baking in a cab, they're a liability to every single person on that site. Finally, we're facing a massive collision between dust suppression and water conservation. When a demolition site is bone dry, keeping dust down is paramount to protect neighbours and workers from potentially lethal silica dust. Traditionally, we've just blasted that dust with thousands of litres of water using misting cannons. But we're looking at a future of severe summer water restrictions and intense public scrutiny. At a time when communities are rightfully questioning the immense water consumption of newly built data centres, a demolition contractor using vast amounts of clean water just to damp down a pile of rubble is going to face a severe regulatory and public backlash. We have to pivot to chemical stabilizers that bind surface dust with a fraction of the water, look at enclosed demolition techniques, and design sites that can capture, filter, and reuse their own runoff water. We also can't ignore what this heat does to the ground itself. Sustained dry spells cause severe soil contraction, particularly in clay-heavy regions like the southeast of England. That can lead to sudden, unexpected movement in trench walls, retaining structures, and the foundations of neighbouring buildings during a delicate demolition job. And you combine that with a skyrocketing risk of site fires from hot cutting sparks landing on parched timber, and it's clear that the traditional British summer is a thing of the past. The climate has changed, and if our site practices don't change with it, this industry is going to get burned.